Welcome to RichPlanet TV. I'm Richard D. Hall. Has your partner just stormed off in the huff because you are watching RichPlanet again? Fear not, you are not alone in experiencing this phenomenon. And don't be controlled by emotional blackmail either. It's not big and it's not clever, so close the door and I'll begin. Our mainstream media bullshit meter has been under serious stress recently, starting with the alleged failings in security at the Olympics. This story actually broke in the alternative media on the Tony Gosling show, with a supposed undercover journalist expressing doubts about the company G4S, who have been awarded contracts for the security during the Olympic Games. The whistleblower expressed concerns about private companies being used for security at the Olympics and reported failings in training procedures and other practices he observed while working for G4S. Well, excuse me if I don't get on that bandwagon of utter cack and instead take a step back and consider just what is really going on here. Are we really saying that the sports contests consisting of 35 different sports and over 400 sporting events should be protected using body scanners, strip searches and militaristic style protection? That would be practically impossible. This failings of Olympic security rubbish is pure psychological manipulation, and Tony Gosling ought to think twice before promoting such psychological manipulation on his radio show. They poisoned the alternative media with this pap before proceeding to get it on Sky News and the rest of the brainless, non-critically analysing mainstream media. The psychological manipulation is quite straightforward. These stories plant the seed in people's minds that a terrorist or similar attack, if attempted, is likely to succeed on a large scale due to failings in security. So when it actually happens, people are more likely to accept the fake event. Either that or it is an excuse to get people to accept the army being on the streets instead of G4S, but probably both. Open your eyes, people. The activities of the RAF to protect airspace over London is also pure psychological manipulation, making people think that there is a real threat from terrorists. Like on 9/11, It is utter bunk. 9/11 was utter bunk and 7/7 was utter bunk, organised and carried out by Western intelligence agencies. And they are using the fake history of 9/11 and 7/7 to solidify fake threats of terrorism at this time during the Olympics. What use is an aircraft carrier against terrorists inside the Olympic Stadium? Put that bomb down or we will ram you with our aircraft carrier. It is all for show and serves to manipulate the minds of the masses. The question which begs to be asked, however, is what is the fake event they are planning and who will they blame it on? Well, the prime candidate for blame is, of course, Iran, a country that the US has been closing in on for some time. Iran is now surrounded by Western military on all sides, Syria being the last domino to fall before Iran is completely isolated. As we approach the Olympics, mainstream media have been ramping up the anti-Iranian propaganda, showing images of Iran's missiles, cementing in our minds that Iran is some kind of threat. Well, excuse me if I don't get on that bandwagon of cack either. At this juncture, we must give a passing mention to the fake alien invasion theory, originally put forward by Ian R. Crane in 2007. The Daily Mail recently featured an article reporting that an ex-CIA agent claimed to have seen secret documents confirming that the 1947 Roswell UFO incident was real and involved real aliens. This is not really news because several people have made this claim in the past, but have never been treated seriously by the likes of the Daily Mail. The point worthy of note here is that this story was treated 100% seriously by the Daily Mail. Why the sudden change of attitude towards the UFO subject? Is this yet more psychological manipulation pointing to a fake alien invasion? I wouldn't like to say. One regular RichPlanet viewer said in his email, "I do feel so much conspiratorial attention is upon it now," meaning the Olympics, "that it may be a distraction for something else." And by the way, what the has happened to our weather this summer? I have never known so much rain. The wildlife in my garden doesn't know whether to emigrate, hibernate, pupate, gestate or copulate. Even non-conspiracy-minded people are saying, "Is somebody messing with the weather?" For the record, I am recording this on Saturday the 14th of July 2012 at 2:30 p.m. It will air for the first time on TV on Friday the 27th of July at 8 p.m, immediately before the Olympic opening ceremony, which starts at 9 p.m. I'm going to bring to your attention some mainstream newspaper front pages which have appeared over recent weeks. Here's the first from the 14th of June. On this front page, the large text is a separate story from the photograph of the Queen. The thing to point out here is that the accompanying text is what I would call a nothing story, meaning it is not really of any great importance in terms of news. So it could have been put there purely to plant the word kill next to the image of the Queen. Here is another one from the same day. The second story I'd like to point out was on the 5th of July. Again, the story containing the word handcuff is a nothing story and may have been put there purely to put the word handcuff next to the image of Kate, showing her with her hands held as if being handcuffed. So what am I saying here? Well, the first thing to point out is that your subconscious mind takes on board information and remembers it, which your conscious mind doesn't see. It's a bit like auto-suggestion. If I plant something in your mind by embedding it in certain parts of a conversation, it could influence the decision that you make in future without you even realizing it. These headlines may be doing something similar. Let's just say that Kate Middleton does get kidnapped. You would more readily accept this as being true if you have had a suggestion of her being handcuffed put into your subconscious mind without you even knowing it. So are these headlines intended to program the general public with information so they more willingly accept an event involving an attack on the royal family in the future? Are the people devising these headlines being directed by a group that will stage a fake attack on the Queen and on the royal family? One thing is for sure, any attack on the Queen, i.e. the head of state, would provide total justification to go after the group blamed for the attack. And what a great way to pull on the heartstrings of the nation to orchestrate a fake abduction of our beloved princess. And what about Prince William? Well, there's been so much propaganda put out about Prince William being the perfect candidate for king. My sick bucket is practically overflowing. One can't help think that the way is being paved, or in his case, carpeted, for William to become king next, perhaps before 2012 is out. What better way to catapult the new young king to power than with a psychological operation where he saves the day and thwarts an attack on the royals? Sounds far-fetched? Perhaps. My observation of what is being played out may turn out to be incorrect. I may be reading too much into things here. After all, nobody can really predict the future. But as I've said in the past, you won't catch me at the Olympics. The opening ceremony will include, inside the Olympic Stadium, a mock-up of English rural life, including 12 horses, 3 cows, 2 goats, 10 chickens, 10 ducks, 9 geese, 70 sheep and 3 sheepdogs. A few weeks ago they unveiled a scale model of the set. I thought it was an old set from Michael Bentine's Potty Time, which was a great show. For those who don't remember it, here's a quick clip.
I'm trying to do a report on the Khyber Pass.
Oh, first class. You couldn't have come to a better place.
Why is that, sir?
Well, I mean, this is the Khyber Pass.
Colonel
Potterton. Colonel Potterton.
Yes.
Known all over the northwest frontier as Potty Potterton.
Yes, I'm sure. Who exactly are you fighting, sir?
Who are we fighting? Did you hear that from an armaker? Who are we fighting? Why did Sir Colonel? What a very, very highly fun-making. Who are we fighting?
Yes. Who exactly
Did you
are
hear
you
that,
fighting?
Guru? Oh, jolly good. Who are we fighting? Did you hear that, Max? He said, who are we fighting?
Yes.
Who are we fighting?
Very good. Yes, I'm sure.
Very good.
Who exactly are you fighting?
Yes, indeed. Who are we fighting, sir? This is a very good question, of course. Who are we fighting? We come on now to the arrest and imprisonment of Roger Hayes, who I met in Newcastle in 2009. For those who don't know who Roger is, he is the chairman of the British Constitutional Group and over recent years has been exposing the erosion of common law in British courts in favour of statute law, and in March 2011 he was involved in civilly arresting a judge in Birkenhead for acting unlawfully. He has also been promoting the lawful bank and an alternative monetary system which could replace the fraudulent fractional reserve banking system currently in place in most Western economies. He was arrested on Monday the 2nd of July at 9:30 a.m. 2 police cars and 4 policemen from Merseyside Police turned up at his Wirral home and whisked him away. The first his family heard of him was at 6:30 that evening via telephone call from a warder in Liverpool prison. They said that Roger had been tried and sentenced to prison. At no time were the family or any other members of the public informed of his arrest, and it is understood that he was tried in a secret court without a jury. He was denied the right to argue his case, denied the right to a jury, and denied the right for the public to see justice being done. Roger's crime is that he has withheld payment of council tax because, along with other state taxes, a proportion of the tax revenue gathered is being sent to the European Union, used to fund unlawful wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya and Syria, and promote terrorism right around the world. Therefore, to pay these taxes under such circumstances is, at the very least, unlawful under Section 15 in brackets 3 of the Terrorism Act 2000. The alternative monetary system that he promotes has been developed to counter the destructive modern-day banking system that is the sole cause of the massive debt mountains that are now the burden of virtually every nation on this planet. It is his contention that people should be educated to the fact that the national debt would not exist if the creation of money was directly controlled by our elected governments, and that also, if this were the case, the taxes we would pay would be dramatically reduced. I couldn't agree more. This system provides the means by which national debt mountains can be extinguished for the universal benefit of us all, by creating streams of positive financial liquidity in the hands of the people, instead of the streams of negative debt that have been placed on the shoulders of national governments, and which are being paid for by ever-increasing taxes. It is a statement of fact that these debt mountains were entirely unnecessary and exist simply because the political elite in national governments have been persuaded, some would say bribed, to hand over the control of their nation's money to the international banking cartel. The benefits of the alternative monetary system will offer interest-free loans for home purchases, subject to an arrangement fee only, interest-free loans to businesses, subject to arrangement fee only, interest-free loans for car and other household goods, subject to arrangement fee only, and interest-free funds for community projects, subject to arrangement fee only, a large network of community branches, a positive credit system. For every £1 deposited, each member creates £10 credit in their account. This credit, created by the system on the back of the cash deposited, is the property of the member and thus not a debt to the member. This provides streams of credit to the system, not debt. Now, if you are sitting thinking that would never work, I can inform you that the reason you sit there thinking that is because you have been so successfully and comprehensively brainwashed you are unable to step out of the paradigm in which your switched-off mind is firmly entrenched. Interest-free economies can work and do work. Governments borrowing money from outside entities is a contradiction in terms. The bank, in a game of Monopoly, does not borrow money from anyone. The buck stops with the bank, which is the source of all new money. And in the same way, in real life, the buck should stop with the government, which should be the source of all new money. Hence, the government being in debt is a contradiction in terms. The current system is a con. Wake up out of your slumber. Now, on the day of recording this, the 14th of July 2012, Roger Hayes is still in prison and has received a large number of supporting letters. I personally find it more than a coincidence that he was locked up on the 2nd of July, around the same time that the alleged banking interest fixing scandal broke, which is yet another fake smokescreen scandal to make people think something is being done about the fraudulent banking system, when in actual fact there is no intention to change the banking system. Even if you sack all the bankers, that does not change the fraudulent fractional reserve system, which Roger Hayes is seeking to replace. He seeks to change the system, not necessarily the personnel, which is why he is a threat. This period of this so-called banking scandal would have been an excellent time for Roger Hayes to have explained and promoted the solution to the fraudulent banking system to the mainstream media, but he got locked up without a jury just as the story was hitting the headlines. Well, well, well. You can find out more about Roger Hayes from the following links. On with the show. After the break, I will be screening an interview that I recorded with Sam and Jean Wright at the Probe UK UFO conference held twice a year in Lytham St Anne's. Now, Jean Wright unfortunately passed away last year. I didn't air this interview at the time because there was a slight problem with the sound. Now, the conference is still going on and the memory of Jean is very much with us. She was a wonderful lady, and I would like to wish Sam all the best with his future conferences. Welcome back. Before we go to the interview with Sam and Jean Wright, I just want to report on some information I gleaned from a chap who attended one of my talks on the recent tour concerning the Bristol Channel Triangle. This was a mysterious triangle-shaped object viewable on Google Earth, seemingly embedded in the mudflats on the Bristol Channel just outside Cardiff. The gentleman has a mini hovercraft and viewed the object up close. Apparently it is the bow of a wrecked ship which has broken away from the rest of the ship and become embedded in the mudflats. Over time, the bow has since filled up with rocks and silt, creating a perfect triangular shape observed from above. So there you go. One further announcement. I am organising venues for a speaking tour in May 2013 and will be limiting the roadshow to 10 events. Now, I'm looking for suitable venues which need to sit at least 150 people. The following is a provisional list of locations: Glasgow, Liverpool, Birmingham, Nottingham, Barnsley, Weston-super-Mare, Southampton, Reading, London and Newcastle upon Tyne. So if you know of a suitable venue in any of those locations, please get in touch via the richplanet.net website. On with the interview with Sam and Jean Wright, recorded in March 2011 at the Probe UFO conference in Lytham St Anne's. We're coming up to the venue, which is the YMCA in Lytham St Anne's of the Probe International UFO and Paranormal Conference.
Eyes were wide open, and this is what they showed me.
Now he was using these implants, so basically what they would do is they would replicate the electronic signals to make brain functions happen.
You know, but when you say, well, where would we go look for aliens? I would start with the dentist office. Let's ask the dentist, you know. Have you any of your patients got 24 teeth, you know, or short roots or anything, right?
I'm at the Probe 2011 UFO and Paranormal Conference, and I'm with the organisers, Sam and Jean Wright. And so a quick fire, 10 minutes. When did you start?
About 15 years ago was our first conference.
Okay, and were you involved with other groups or conferences before then?
We were, yeah. We were a member of the group called Lapis, which is still going today.
Right.
But they're a bit smaller than we are.
Right. And how many people here today, Jean?
About 180.
180. Improvement on last year?
Oh, especially for March.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Plus the vendors, if you include them, you probably
You're
do
talking 200 if you include the vendors who were originally at one time attendees.
They still pay for the venue as well, you know.
Because they want to hear the conference.
So,
over 2 days, probably 3,500.
right, okay. Now, so where exactly are we? What's the venue, and how often is the conference?
Conference is twice a year, one in the spring and one in the autumn, March and October.
And we're in Lytham St Anne's.
We're in Lytham St Anne's, yes, a pretty town, holiday town. So if they come for the weekend, they really can enjoy it because the conference is good and the town is good.
Yeah, and it's called UFO and Paranormal Conference. I think most people know what UFO means. What does paranormal mean?
What does it mean? Because it's a wide field, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Crop circles, ghosts.
Right. You have people speak on ghosts.
Underground bases, you name it. We try and get an array of talent, say 8 speakers, if they can speak on different subjects. If not, if it's similar, we have 2 speakers, one on the Saturday and one on the Sunday, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
We vary it because obviously the crowd that we get, the attendance we get mediums, we get every Joe blogs, all sorts of people who are interested on people for the first time. We've had a lot of first time. We've had a lot of young people this last 2 years.
All right.
Coming through.
And how would you say this conference is different to any of the other conferences?
I don't know, it's different, you know, people enjoy it, that's all we're interested in. If they're happy and they've enjoyed the conference, we're happy. Because we get a kick out of this. You never make money if you're relying on doing conferences for living. You'll be dead in 2 years.
And also the speakers. We try to look for, we've got a young speaker on this first time and he's gone down absolutely fabulously well, which is also good for him because we have other people here who hold conferences and they take their names and therefore it's going forward, and that's what this is all about.
Right. Now, it's spread over 2 days, the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, and one of the highlights for me is Saturday night at the Carlton Hotel. You meet some interesting people in there, don't you?
This is why we go there, you know, because the people like it. And we like to get mingled with the speakers, make it homely. I don't want to be, you know, 6 foot above everyone else.
It's a relaxing Saturday night.
This is how we like it. Relax and enjoy yourself. If you don't like it, tell us or write to us later.
Right.
Plus, most people have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And then we always have a young man called Dennis who takes photographs constantly through the whole 2 days, and he has some marvellous, he puts them through on his laptop, and he has some marvellous pictures come through.
And how do you share the work of organising it? I mean, who wears the trousers?
No, she's the main organiser.
I use the computer, that's why.
She's been on the stage, she's been a singer and everything, and she likes
I like to talk
she's
to
a better
people.
presenter than me.
Right.
But regarding speakers and all that, we work on this.
We work evenly.
We work evenly.
We work jointly, yes.
And over the years, you've probably had hundreds of speakers.
Well, because it's our 19th conference.
today.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously, apart from me, who's your favourite?
Gosh, that's hard because we've had international speakers.
The most fascinating, I think, is the chap who did the Philadelphia experiment.
Right.
Who we met in America 10 years later, 3 years ago. He's still going. Now, he was in the Philadelphia experiment, yet he's only in his 50s, 60s. Because when he was in Philadelphia, he caught cancer and he was dying.
Right.
And his soul went out of his own body into the body of a 2-year-old. And he still remembers all this. It's fascinating.
This is an experiment to try and make a warship invisible to radar, and then it allegedly actually disappears.
Went in for an hour and 40 minutes, came back. Quite a lot of the crew were ill. There were several, I think there was 2 actually embedded in the doors.
Yeah.
And they had to be shot.
It's a very fascinating subject.
It's
Very fascinating.
And any other memorable speakers?
The memorable bit for me was Paola Harris.
Oh, yeah.
She's the Italian-American, very knowledgeable, brilliant reporter, and if she hasn't interviewed them, you know...
Ufologist, she is.
She really is excellent, and she's a good presenter, good speaker, and she's part of the American UFO Congress, and her interviews are excellent, and a lot of the people do like to see on the screen because it kind of, I don't know, they feel included when it's somehow, I don't know whether it draws them, and she, to me, she was one of the, you know, because there's not that many lady speakers,
right?
Which is an excellent.
I think Bob Sims, the CIA man who came.
Daryl
Sims.
He was fascinating.
He went to the village that disappeared in Alaska. 400 people disappeared, men, women, and children overnight. And we seen him about 3 or 4 years later, he was retired. And he said,
Right.
it's still ongoing,
Right.
investigating.
And then there was
They
Dean
went into
Warwick's.
all the houses, the brick bungalows. There was one supermarket there and a meeting hall. And when they went to the supermarket, everything was in a tap. And they opened the till, there was still about $100 in, not being touched.
Right.
Some of the houses they went in, there were meals on the table.
Right.
Nothing had been disturbed.
Right.
Even the dogs had disappeared. Had about 5 or 6 dogs in the
Fascinating.
village that
Right.
had disappeared.
Right. Right.
And the other speaker I liked, who unfortunately passed away at our conference, was Dean Warwick.
Yes.
Fascinating man with a lot to tell, and it was just so sad that
Right.
he passed
And
away.
believe it or not, when he spoke on the Saturday, 4 days later at home, he appeared in the dining room as I was walking through.
Sam sees.
I see things, and he appeared
Sam
and
sees.
he was gone in 2
Really?
seconds. Just stood at the
Fascinating.
table looking.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Never waved or anything, he just
Right.
looked, then he'd gone.
Right. And you've both been over to the States at conferences.
Oh,
and
Oh, we
haven't
went
you?
for
10
10
times,
years.
10 years on
10
the
years,
trot.
Yeah.
yes.
We'd always
Until
try and bring
the
Right.
Speaker
9/11.
over till 9/11.
We didn't go after 9/11
We
for a
can't
while.
afford it.
Oh, I see, right.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but I just said, go with the gut feeling or whatever you wish to call it, but I say, if you don't feel comfortable, then don't do it. It's like the conferences. If you don't feel comfortable when there's a speaker on, don't go around shouting about it. It's because this is your thing. Just go out and have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And when you come in, that's all you need, because
Yeah.
nobody. It doesn't
Can't
mean
please
that.
everyone.
It doesn't mean
No,
that. It does not mean that every speaker we put on that
Yeah.
we agree with everything they say, but we present people, but which giving people some more information. That's really what it's about, because so many people today are asking, who are we, where do we come from, because they're not happy at what they're being told, because now they're more intelligent.
Right. Okay.
And we can accept things.
Okay. Fantastic.
That's it,
And you met Bob Lazar, didn't you, Sam?
Well, we met him coming into the dining room spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we met him.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bob D, you name it.
Yeah.
In fact, Miles Johnson was quite surprised this morning, because I'm not really all that. Sam is the one who remembers the dates and things.
Right.
I remember just the people.
Right.
And Miles was absolutely, when I told him about the girl when we were in Area 51 and the night we all went out with the big naval chap beside me and Sam at the other side, 2 o'clock in the morning, 14 of us all holding hands going, hum. And then we all jumped into the van and somebody stepped over the part where it says, if you step over here, you could be shot. And the lights came on from above and we all jumped in the van and we were sort of chased out the area. It was brilliant. I
Right.
mean, those are the kind of things.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic conference.
Yeah.
Yeah. 10 days.
Yeah.
I thought
Right.
ours was good. But
It started. They started. If we were younger, it's a shame.
Right.
But it started off like we did, and then it grew.
Right.
It grew. The UFO conference grew, and then Terry got contacted cancer
right.
and died, and then Bob is. It's been sold to another group, but they're
Yes.
still part of it, but not.
Right. Is that the
running it.
Paradigm Research Group?
No, it's the UFO Congress.
UFO Congress, right, okay. Right.
It's now
Yes.
the new one is in Phoenix now. The other one was Las Vegas.
It used to be 8 days now, but I think we're down
Yeah.
to about 4 or 5.
So when's the next one?
October.
October. So people
First-
can look that up on the net.
October 1st and 2nd. Yes, it's www.ukprobe.
Yeah. We've got another American speaker coming over, a lady
Yeah.
whose husband is in prison. He's an American astronaut.
UN.
Yeah,
He's
he's
been in prison for 27 years.
right. An astronaut who's been in prison for 27 years because he's spilling the beans on secret space programs,
Right.
presumably.
But another story. But another story was put out to cover why
Why he's
he
really in
was
prison.
really in prison, because he tried again this year because they have a new senator to get parole, and it's been turned down again. But the person who was involved more, as they said, was allowed out of prison after 9 months.
Right.
It does not fit.
Right.
It smelt.
And you've been, sorry,
He worked not for NASA, he worked for the United Nations and their own space fleet.
Right.
And who was in charge of the space fleet? His father
right.
and Lord Louis Mountbatten. They were
Right.
the people who run the...
This is a secret
These are
space
the
program.
stories that
And
he relates.
Yeah, he told us that he was going, in his, we've got quite a few of his letters, that while they were landing on the moon, they were in deep space already. He'd met 4 alien races in deep space, and 1 out of the 4 was hostile. They
Right.
had a battle with it.
Okay.
And they had a battle 2 years later over the China Seas.
Right. So you've been in contact indirectly with this guy who's
We
this
write,
astronaut
we
in
write
prison?
to him. We actually write to him
We
because
send him books.
all
Right.
our mail is censored, and his
Right.
mail is censored because I asked him, because he was educated part here in Cambridge and part in Princetown, so he speaks 6 languages, and he's a physicist.
Right.
And he's now teaching the Hispanics and the young black lads in prison who can't read and write. And he's teaching them, I mean, this is a sin really, but the point is, he said, they will never let me out.
He actually had him and his father about 30, 40 years ago on dinner with the Queen.
Right.
Queen Mother,
Queen
no, Queen
Mother.
Mother, the old Queen Mother.
Yeah. Okay, and his wife's going to be speaking
Yes,
in October.
and yes, she's
October.
called
She was speaking on both days.
Joanne Richards.
What they do, they have a code worked out.
Mhm.
If he wants to come out with a story, he'll do it so the authority, because they're always listening to it. And, you know,
Right.
They don't know what he's talking about, because most of them are sick anyway.
Right.
But the thing is,
That's what he works with, the big ads.
Joanne
They're all sick.
Richards, she's an editor of a small paper called Ecobite. And what he does, he tells her, which they kind of put it in as fiction.
All right, I see.
That's how they get, otherwise it would never be allowed to come
You're
out.
giving it away, Jane.
Only kidding, by the way.
All right. Well, thanks very much for speaking, and it's been a fantastic conference. We've loved
Thank
it,
you for coming.
and we
Thank
love
you.
coming here whenever we've been.
Thank you.
It's
Well,
great.
as
Great
you know,
work.
You'll be
Richard,
up next year
we'll be
anyway.
asking
Yep.
you for next year,
Yep.
2012.
Right.
And we're hoping for a dynamic.
Right. I've got
October
something up my
2012.
sleeve. Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Well,
Okay.
it's always interesting.
Right.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the help.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And you.
Helps.
All right then.
Propaganda helps anyway.
Welcome back. Now, on the 4th and 5th of August, there is a second Exopolitics conference in Liverpool where I and a number of other speakers will be speaking. In part 3, I will be re-screening a review of the speakers for the upcoming conference. I'm talking with Anthony Beckett about the UK annual Exopolitics conferences because there's 2 this year, one on the 30th of June, which we've been talking about, and another on the 4th and 5th of August at the Static Gallery in Liverpool. Now, Exopolitics is the study of anything related to intelligences not of this earth or policy towards extraterrestrials, UFOs, etc. Now, in the August conference, tell us who you've got speaking there, Anthony.
We're starting with Andrew Johnson on the beginning of the Saturday, and he'll be talking. I've got down Dark Mission as his provisional title, I think, but he's
Right.
going to be looking at what can be considered not the dark nature of the UFO as such, but the dark nature of UFO research,
Right.
in the idea of certain researchers not quite working towards the.
Mm-hmm. So Andrew alleges that certain people within the 9/11 truth movement are operatives and are merely there to change people's perceptions of who are trying to get to the truth. And
Yeah.
I would go along with him on many of those people that he's named. So he's going to do this a similar thing, looking at the UFO.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's quite a broad scope of subjects, but it's basically going to be looking at
The cover-up.
the cover-up, yeah, and how the cover-up is. Well, one of the things he says about the 9/11 truth information is how the cover-up is multi-tiered. There's a cover-up at one level, but once you get past that and realise something else went on, there's like other things wasn't quite as the official story.
Yeah.
Then you start looking at other evidence, and you find that there's another tier of truth.
There's an
which
official
is
conspiracy
covered up.
theory, which
Again,
is also bogus.
and you have the similar. You possibly have similar kind of a structure within the UFO cover-up.
Yeah.
The UFO cover-up.
Yeah.
To give an example without naming names,
Yeah.
there's a certain, for example, I mean, I'm not going to mention.
Name the names.
I'm not going to mention Nick Pope again, but some people.
Well, we don't need to mention him.
Some people say Nick Pope is working for others. He
Yeah.
doesn't need to be. He works for the media. It's his job now.
Right.
So regardless of who he's working for, at one
Yeah.
level, he's always going to be working for them because it's his job, right? So
Yeah.
we have people who are already still working, for example, for the US military, coming out saying, no, there's no UFO cover-up, yep, there's UFOs, and we need to kind of, they're basically discrediting people who are UFO researchers who say there's a government cover-up,
Right.
because they disagree and say they find no evidence.
All right.
And anyway, yeah, so anyway, I'm just going to be covering that kind of stuff. Basically, the bottom line is, there's ways you can actually suss out these people, and there's like a litmus test, really, and it's basically truth-telling. You know, whether it's telling the truth as they see it, or whether they're covering up. If they start covering up other stuff, then yeah, okay, you can't necessarily trust them. If they speak the truth as they see it and they're wrong, that's a different matter.
Yeah.
But there's evidence that some people are working towards the common good, let me put it that way.
Right.
So yeah, that's Andrew's talk at the beginning of the Saturday.
All right.
And then what we have is 3 lectures, well, one film and then 2 lectures, all covering the animal mutilations phenomena.
Right.
So what we're going to have is we're going to be showing your film Silent Killers.
Mm-hmm.
It was as an introduction to the subject, because I know many people will have heard about the phenomena, but won't know necessarily the details.
Yeah, I mean, the animal mutilation phenomenon for decades has been linked to the UFO phenomenon, and I've spoken about this in my tour, and in 2009 I made a film with the help of David Caton, Phil Hoyle and Mike Freebury, who had a group called the APFU Animal Pathology Field Unit, and they researched cases of animals that basically are discovered with surgical injuries that no one can explain, no one's ever been caught, no one's ever been seen with this phenomenon, and there are people who have claimed to have seen documents in the Pentagon saying that this is an extraterrestrial phenomenon, that these animals, whoever's doing it, it's a non-human activity. Now, I made a film about this in 2009, and that's going to be screened at this conference to set the stage for Mike Freebury and myself and David Caton. And I've interviewed Mike Freebury on this show before. He's investigated cases on Dartmoor and other cases of sheep mutilations and pony mutilations, and his book is Killers on the Moor. People can watch the interview that I did with Mike Freebury online. And then after that, myself and David Caton are going to do a joint talk about the animal mutilation phenomenon. David's currently researching the seal mutilations, which have occurred over between 2008 and 2010 in Norfolk, St Andrews in Scotland, and off the northeast coast of Northern Ireland. And people who think that the media has given a rational explanation for this, I can inform you that the person who's carried out most of the post-mortems on the seals does not know what is causing it. So don't believe what you see in the mainstream. All right then, Anthony. So after we've had the animal mutilation talks with Mike Freebury, myself and David, who have we got after that?
Yeah, we've got a Canadian guy actually who've been wanting to get over for a few years now. I first met him, I think, in 2005 at the Steve Bassett's X conference, and he's a Canadian. He runs a website called Presidential UFO, which is about, he files in freedom of information requests to get information about what presidents have known about UFOs or spoken about, for example. And although the guy's a Canadian, but in this, when he's at the conference, so he's going to be speaking about a different subject. Actually, he's going to be speaking about consciousness and mathematics, and is that the missing links?
Right.
And basically, going back, he maintains that there's been a UFO cover-up for going back to, like, I guess, late 40s and 50s, and is basically looking at evidence how not only was the idea of UFOs affecting a UFO experience. It's more a case of that the humanity's consciousness has been pushed in a certain direction by the UFO experience on the whole. Right. And what Grant Cameron's research is pointing to is that these, the people in charge of the cover-up have known from the beginning that the consciousness aspect was one of the issues, and that might be one of the primary reasons for the cover-up over the decades.
Right. All right. Now, you hear a lot of people talking about consciousness, and it's one of those things that I've avoided, really, because it's not a nuts and bolts issue that I would tend to deal with. I don't really know what it is. I guess there's a non-physical, or possibly there's a non-physical element to existence, that we're not just biological machines, that there's something else which is the essence of us, and that we have a consciousness, we have an awareness, and that is very important in determining your future, if you like. You can change the physical reality by what's in your consciousness. I think that's quite a plausible argument, but you get into the whole realm of metaphysics, and none of it's provable. That's the problem with it all. But I'm sure there's a non-physical element to the world, and to human beings especially, that we're not just a biological machine.
Yeah. Well,
but I would, if I was the Prime Minister or whatever, what I would do is I would have universities funded, departments looking at that specific issue. Is there looking at non-physical research. Because if you go to university, they'll say, well, if it's not physical, then it isn't real.
Yeah. Well, I'd argue that's actually happened, but just covertly. But
You think that's happened, but covertly? All right. So, can you...
it's a kind of, well, if there is such a...
Rupert Sheldrake will be a good example of someone who researches that, but he's
well, look at like the premise of remote viewing, and even what Dan Sherman talks about of intuitive communication. Right, intuitive communication has never come out. It's never come out publicly that that's actually happened. It's never been admitted to.
Yeah.
Whereas remote viewing has been admitted to, and that is just to people.
These are other aspects of the same phenomenon.
Yeah.
Remote viewing, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and they're all possibly part and parcel of the same thing.
Yeah,
this consciousness that the body is not just you are not your body. You are not just your body, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
There's more to you than, as I say, a biological computer. And you think that the arrival of ETs, let's say in the 1940s, they were able to connect with that non-physical element of people, and the government didn't want anyone to know about this.
Well, it could well be for legitimate reasons. But if that's true, it could well be for legitimate reasons. All you need to do is look up pick up a copy of any random book that's like, a New Age book on UFOs, for example. We're full of all sorts of stuff you can't verify. One of the reasons you stick to nuts and bolts stuff, and like when I put events on, I choose people who I can mostly verify. Sometimes you can't always do that. You don't always have the luxury of being able to verify every single detail. You have to just take that as, okay, this is testimony, and that level it would stand in court because people's testimony stands up in court, for example. But when it comes to like the metaphysical side of things, well, it's been in UFO kind of law since the 50s, basically, since even contactee cases, for example, that this non-physical consciousness or awakening something is being going on. Now, I can't pin that down to a definition or even whether it's real or not, but hypothetically, if there are, well, we know that people are out there claiming experiences and writing about it and changing the course of the social direction, basically, because it's out there in the public domain. Well, if that was being driven, and if this happens to be true, and the military is all about, or the governments, for example, which are all about govern the mind, control, basically. That's the last thing we want. So regardless of whether it was true or false in the first place, if that's what the government or the military or the people behind the cover-up suspected was the case, it gives them, it's understandable that why they would actually consider looking at that and speculating that might be something we need to clamp down on, because we don't want people too free thinking, because we lose our control. Yeah. And so from that perspective, it doesn't actually matter whether it's true or false to be. I mean, Grant Cameron's research, for example, is evidentially based. It's all about, which politicians, which academics said what, said when, and collating the information and finding out what patterns were formed in that to get an idea of what direction they went in their thinking. Yeah,
because people like David Icke and others will say that there is more to the human being than a biological computer, but they don't want people to know this because it empowers people that they have knowledge of their non-physical side, and it's that's the real person. And he will claim that they're using a whole range of measures so people don't find that out, so that they can be controlled like a biological computer. They do not want this free thinking, as you said, people critically analysing or becoming aware that they're more than they think they are.
Yeah. There's another side to this, and if you think about the researcher Jacques Vallée, he wrote Passage to Magonia, and I forget the title of his other books. But he was, in fact, if you remember, I watched this the other day on TV. That was Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind film. The French guy in that is basically modelled on Jacques Vallée, and in an interview I watched actually on YouTube, Jacques Vallée wasn't happy with Spielberg for portraying a character modelled on him who believes that it's all ETs and they're all happy and friendly and this kind of stuff. Because Jacques Vallée just didn't buy it at all. The term he used was the messengers of deception. I think because basically the fundamental point was that through these abduction experiences that he was researching, he saw that there's something behind it. We just can't know what it is, and it's a bit naive just to accept it on face value that it's all good. So he was conversed. I mean, I'm not saying I'm taking either side of that. I just say I don't know.
Well,
just don't throw that one in there. So.
If I just go back to what we were saying about Nick Pope in the Daily Mail, and that aliens might have these advanced weapons and they're going to possibly open fire and all of this. Really, this whole thing makes a mockery of that, because if you think about what any war is or any conflict, it's one group trying to manipulate and get another group to behave in a way that they would like.
Yeah.
So it's we were talking about the information war that's taking place with news and the control of media. There's a war being fought out on that level, and it's not firing physical objects at people with kinetic energy. It's a lot more subtle than that. It's about mind control. It's about influencing people. That's really the war that's at stake, and it's not necessarily the army. There are a whole load more, I would say, methods of controlling another group than just firing weapons at them. And I think to suggest that extraterrestrials, if they came here, would be engaged in that kind of conflict is simplistic.
Yeah, I think you're right in that. If we start looking at this from that perspective as like, what is the war that's being fought, then the first thing that happens in a regular conventional war, whether it's against, Afghanistan, Iraq, or what, the first thing they'll do is send out flyers. It's an information war. They'll try and get people on side to their way of thinking. It's it's propaganda.
Full spectrum dominance.
Yeah,
including the airwaves.
But these these sheets of paper.
Yeah.
The written word is more dangerous, more harmful than the sword. But basically, they'll use information as a way to get to fight a warfare. Yeah. And is that what we're seeing now? Is this what this disinformation?
Yeah, the actual article in the Daily Mail. It's you just don't know what to believe the motivation behind it is. It's difficult.
Well, like you pointed out, the difference between that and the Crane's coverage in the Sun newspaper, which made him out to be a kook, but then you got Nick Pope talking about it, former MOD, therefore it must be legitimate, therefore treat it with serious. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. All right. Well, then it goes into day 2 of the conference. And we've got Gary Heseltine. Yeah,
we start off with Gary Heseltine, who's going to be giving us an update of. We know what he's been up to recently. He's been doing some good work actually recently, because you probably saw him on this morning's TV
he was
program.
on This Morning with Philip Schofield
and Chris French was that was an interesting one. But on the second day, which is Sunday, August the 5th, we have David Griffin's back, and he'll be talking about the extraterrestrial dimension to the 1980s Falklands conflict. Now, yes, so I don't know the full details of this, but you mentioned earlier, actually, we were discussing off camera.
Yeah, well, when you said that, the extraterrestrial dimension to the Falklands conflict, what I think of is, in one of Timothy Good's books, he alleged to have intelligence telling him that there was an underground ET base underneath the South Pole. So that would make the Falklands possibly a strategic area if there is a secret base under the South Pole, which would mean that might tell you why Britain might want to keep hold of that island.
Yeah, I mean that's from what David's told me. That I don't recall whether it was under Antarctica or whether it's actually just in the ocean. But that's what.
But there are alleged to be bases under the ocean in various locations.
Yeah, so that's what David's going to be looking at that. And
so next at the conference is Natasha Akimovich.
The title of the talk is ET Hybrid Consciousness, and just to clarify what she means by hybrid, it's the idea that people who there's a testimony of people who claim to be abductees that they have when their experience when they've been ETs have shown them children, which and have been told that that's your child. Yeah. And so the claim is that these are hybrid babies, part them, part ET. Yeah. But Natasha's
and this is not uncommon, folks. Yeah, this is a lot of women who've been abducted or alleged to have been abducted report this very same thing, being shown babies and being told that this is your baby. And some female abductees, I've been in communication with one, she's had 19 miscarriages, right, and all in her sleep. And this has been so at a particular age of the fetus is a certain age, and she's had all these ET or UFO sighting experiences.
What Natasha's going to be looking at, is the consciousness implications of that phenomena, implied by the evidence.
So the next speaker is Alan Foster, who's spoken before.
From witness testimony-based stuff from what people experienced is going to project in towards what might actually be happening at the current times. This all goes in the kind of idea that we are going through planetary changes, and it's not just the planet that's changing, because we're all part of the same.
Right.
Think of it as a whole, and if
Right.
planetary is going through certain changes,
All
we
right.
all do.
Okay, Anthony. Well, what's the website where people can find out details of both these conferences then?
You can go to exopoliticsgb.com, and if you can't spell Exopolitics, go to thisisdisclosure.com, it'll take you straight there. And the tickets are £35 per day for the June event, or £70 for the weekend, or £40 per day for August's events.
That's all we've got time for this week. And remember, believe none of what you hear and only half of what you see. I'm Richard D. Hall. Good night. Messing with the weather. For the record, I am recording this on Saturday the 14th of July 2012 at 2:30 p.m. It will air for the first time on TV on Friday the 27th of July at 8 p.m, immediately before the Olympic opening ceremony, which starts at 9 p.m. I'm going to bring to your attention some mainstream newspaper front pages which have appeared over recent weeks. Here's the first from the 14th of June. On this front page, the large text is a separate story from the photograph of the Queen. The thing to point out here is that the accompanying text is what I would call a nothing story, meaning it is not really of any great importance in terms of news. So it could have been put there purely to plant the word kill next to the image of the Queen. Here is another one from the same day. The second story I'd like to point out was on the 5th of July. Again, the story containing the word handcuff is a nothing story and may have been put there purely to put the word handcuff next to the image of Kate, showing her with her hands held as if being handcuffed. So what am I saying here? Well, the first thing to point out is that your subconscious mind takes on board information and remembers it, which your conscious mind doesn't see. It's a bit like auto-suggestion. If I plant something in your mind by embedding it in certain parts of a conversation, it could influence the decision that you make in future without you even realizing it. These headlines may be doing something similar. Let's just say that Kate Middleton does get kidnapped. You would more readily accept this as being true if you have had a suggestion of her being handcuffed put into your subconscious mind without you even knowing it. So are these headlines intended to program the general public with information so they more willingly accept an event involving an attack on the royal family in the future? Are the people devising these headlines being directed by a group that will stage a fake attack on the Queen and on the royal family? One thing is for sure, any attack on the Queen, i.e. the head of state, would provide total justification to go after the group blamed for the attack. And what a great way to pull on the heartstrings of the nation to orchestrate a fake abduction of our beloved princess. And what about Prince William? Well, there's been so much propaganda put out about Prince William being the perfect candidate for king. My sick bucket is practically overflowing. One can't help think that the way is being paved, or in his case, carpeted, for William to become king next, perhaps before 2012 is out. What better way to catapult the new young king to power than with a psychological operation where he saves the day and thwarts an attack on the royals? Sounds far-fetched? Perhaps. My observation of what is being played out may turn out to be incorrect. I may be reading too much into things here. After all, nobody can really predict the future. But as I've said in the past, you won't catch me at the Olympics. The opening ceremony will include, inside the Olympic Stadium, a mock-up of English rural life, including 12 horses, 3 cows, 2 goats, 10 chickens, Welcome to RichPlanet TV. I'm Richard D. Hall. Has your partner just stormed off in the huff because you are watching RichPlanet again? Fear not, you are not alone in experiencing this phenomenon. And don't be controlled by emotional blackmail either. It's not big and it's not clever, so close the door and I'll begin. Our mainstream media bullshit meter has been under serious stress recently, starting with the alleged failings in security at the Olympics. This story actually broke in the alternative media on the Tony Gosling show, with a supposed undercover journalist expressing doubts about the company G4S, who have been awarded contracts for the security during the Olympic Games. The whistleblower expressed concerns about private companies being used for security at the Olympics and reported failings in training procedures and other practices he observed while working for G4S. Well, excuse me if I don't get on that bandwagon of utter cack and instead take a step back and consider just what is really going on here. Are we really saying that the sports contests consisting of 35 different sports and over 400 sporting events should be protected using body scanners, strip searches and militaristic style protection? That would be practically impossible. This failings of Olympic security rubbish is pure psychological manipulation, and Tony Gosling ought to think twice before promoting such psychological manipulation on his radio show. They poisoned the alternative media with this pap before proceeding to get it on Sky News and the rest of the brainless, non-critically analysing mainstream media. The psychological manipulation is quite straightforward. These stories plant the seed in people's minds that a terrorist or similar attack, if attempted, is likely to succeed on a large scale due to failings in security. So when it actually happens, people are more likely to accept the fake event. Either that or it is an excuse to get people to accept the army being on the streets instead of G4S. But probably both. Open your eyes, people. The activities of the RAF to protect airspace over London is also pure psychological manipulation, making people think that there is a real threat from terrorists. Like on 9/11, It is utter bunk. 9/11 was utter bunk and 7/7 was utter bunk, organised and carried out by Western intelligence agencies. And they are using the fake history of 9/11 and 7/7 to solidify fake threats of terrorism at this time during the Olympics. What use is an aircraft carrier against terrorists inside the Olympic Stadium? Put that bomb down or we will ram you with our aircraft carrier. It is all for show and serves to manipulate the minds of the masses. The question which begs to be asked, however, is what is the fake event they are planning and who will they blame it on? Well, the prime candidate for blame is, of course, Iran, a country that the US has been closing in on for some time. Iran is now surrounded by Western military on all sides, Syria being the last domino to fall before Iran is completely isolated. As we approach the Olympics, mainstream media have been ramping up the anti-Iranian propaganda, showing images of Iran's missiles, cementing in our minds that Iran is some kind of threat. Well, excuse me if I don't get on that bandwagon of cack either. At this juncture, we must give a passing mention to the fake alien invasion theory, originally put forward by Ian R. Crane in 2007. The Daily Mail recently featured an article reporting that an ex-CIA agent claimed to have seen secret documents confirming that the 1947 Roswell UFO incident was real and involved real aliens. This is not really news because several people have made this claim in the past, but have never been treated seriously by the likes of the Daily Mail. The point worthy of note here is that this story was treated 100% seriously by the Daily Mail. Why the sudden change of attitude towards the UFO subject? Is this yet more psychological manipulation pointing to a fake alien invasion? I wouldn't like to say. One regular RichPlanet viewer said in his email, "I do feel so much conspiratorial attention is upon it now," meaning the Olympics, "that it may be a distraction for something else." And by the way, what the has happened to our weather this summer? I have never known so much rain. The wildlife in my garden doesn't know whether to emigrate, hibernate, pupate, gestate or copulate. Even non-conspiracy minded people are saying, is somebody